In this very first episode, I'm going to tell you the story of how I set off on a pilgrimage across the southeast of Asia, searching for the core of Buddhist philosophy. That journey led me to become an ordained Theravada monk and gave me a whole new perspective on the religious aspects of Buddhism. So let me tell you what happened and why I'm asking you to join me on this journey beyond belief. Hello, welcome to Beyond Belief. This is the show where we explore secular Buddhism and the deep, possibly life-changing practice of meditation, but without ritual, symbolism, or religious dogma. Over the next episode, we'll strip back 2,600 years of cultural layers to reveal the pure, logical wisdom of the Buddha, the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, and the power of meditation. My name is Alexander. I have over a decade of dedicated meditation practice. And yeah, I was once a fully ordained Buddhist monk in the revered forest tradition. Now, this history doesn't really make me an expert or a teacher or a guru of any kind. I'm just here as a guide, sharing my experience and to help you find your footing on a practical, contemporary Buddhist path. I have always been rather quick to defend Buddhism as an applied philosophy rather than a spiritual religion. My time as a monk certainly complicated that initial view. But ultimately, it revealed something very powerful, like how the core of Buddhism can be practiced and enjoyed in daily life. I think we can all benefit from the Buddha's profound teachings without the necessity of belief or speculation. In fact, the Buddha himself didn't demand belief. He rather emphasized exploration and investigation and encouraged his followers to question and test his teachings. Don't believe me, just go and practice my teaching and find out for yourselves, he apparently argued. Earlier this year, I traveled to Bangkok with a plan to bicycle cross-country to the region of Chiang Mai in Northern Thailand, where I was scheduled to join a forest monastery as a novice. Once on the road, I was always up early in the mornings and I started seeing monks on their daily alms round. This became my first chance to interact with the monastic community, and honestly, I was quite intimidated by that. I mean, how do you approach a monk? What do you say? Do you bow? And are you even allowed to kind of interrupt their mysterious whereabouts? They seemed so focused and so ceremonial, entirely absorbed in mindfulness. In Thailand, monks are highly revered, being in direct lineage to the Gautama Buddha himself, and respected for living in accordance with the 227 monastic precepts. And I certainly didn't want to interrupt or seem ignorant or make a fool out of myself in any way. After 2 weeks and 1,000 kilometers on the road, I finally reached the monastery. I was expected and welcomed by my future teaching monk, as well as a few other monks in orange robes. I was thrilled, but also nervous. That initial intimidation quickly faded though, when I realized the monks are just people. They're super relaxed and they joke and laugh at about the same things as everyone else. But what truly impressed me was their presence. They all seemed to listen very carefully, and more often than not, they just responded with a reassuring smile. There is a quiet, profound calm to how monks communicate and simply go about with things. Some days later came the actual enrollment. We were a small group joining the monastery at the same time, including novices from all corners of the world, plus a handful of young Thai men coming for their temporary ordination. It's still common practice in Thailand. Traditionally, this was done during Vasa, the rains retreat, as this is when the farms and rice fields tended to need the least attention, I guess. That has of course changed, but most Thai men join the Sangha at least once in their life. My touring bike and my luggage was quickly stored away, and we got changed into white novice attire, which typically consists of a white sarong, white skirt, and a white cotton shirt. And on a quick side note, yeah, monks and novices don't wear underwear under the robes, which feels rather unusual for someone that is used to jeans and a leather jacket, as you can probably imagine. At 4 a.m., the dong would wake us up for morning puja, half an hour of chanting, followed immediately by the first meditation session of the day. We typically meditated 4 times a day together in the shala. Then we did morning chores and had the only meal of the day. As you may know, monks eat before noon and fast for the rest of the day. We also had classes on the Buddha Dhamma and the monastic code. Meditation, of course, is the very core of the practice. And this is also how we spent the majority of our time. As I said, we had 4 scheduled sits, plus extra time to meditate and contemplate the Buddha's teachings. This is something that we often did along a beautiful little river that flew straight through the monastery grounds, or out in the jungle where dedicated little meditation stations had been built. The closeness to and the observation of nature is a big part of the forest tradition. Many monks retreat into the jungle, living in caves or under big trees. And this is something that I personally have always been very drawn to. When the abbot found us to be just about ready enough, came the day of the hair shaving ceremony. It's a big event. Family and supporters of the monastery and lay people from around the area come to see the new monks and to present us with robes and alms bowls. The following weeks we spent studying for the ordination itself. The ceremony is a pretty daunting setup. It's very high pace, full of bowing and rituals. And your turn with the preceptor comes quickly. Every line is delivered in Pali, but even if you've studied and understand the general meaning of things, it's abstract and a tad nerve-wracking. Needless to say, it's a highly formal event, and the pressure is on to get it right. Yet, when the day arrived, I was surprisingly calm. Despite the rather stern-looking preceptor, we all delivered our lines successfully, we chanted, and we received the blessing. It was a fantastically overwhelming sensation to be a bhikkhu, a fully ordained Buddhist monk in the revered Theravada forest tradition. I found myself barefoot, in the robes, standing on hot tarmac in front of a beautiful little monastery in Northern Thailand. In a sense, at that point, I was no longer Alexander. I mean, I had shed my possessions, my hair and eyebrows were gone, and I had been given a monastic name. I had become the Venerable Sundarapalo Bhikkhu, the one with the power of grace. The life of a monk is a life of strict routine, and this routine in itself serves as a teacher. The daily rhythm of chanting, meditation, chores, and contemplation forces your mind to slow down. The time literally dissolves into just the present moment. And here, with the luxury of time for observation, the mind becomes your only enemy. To me, it became blatantly obvious how erratic and unpredictable my own inner voice really is. Obsessed with the past and worried about the future. Being present and mindful of the now is not as obvious or as easy as it might seem. What I learned is the immense power of intentionality. Not only in meditation, but in every simple action, from sweeping the monastery grounds to washing the alms bowl, everything performed with focus and total presence. We were practicing mindfulness as a way of being. The goal isn't necessarily to leave your life behind and join a monastery. It should be to achieve that state of mind of intentional presence of a monk in your daily life. That deliberate practice in everyday activities is, in my opinion, where the real freedom from the erratic monkey mind really lies. But as my meditation deepened, a critical tension also grew. The conflict between the profound practice and the required belief. I became uneasy with the ritualistic aspects, the extensive chanting in Pali, the confessions. All of that meant nothing to me. The constant prostration and the bowing took away from my mindfulness rather than adding a sense of calm. My respect for the Buddha's wisdom was absolute. The practice does work. My problem was encountering elements of miracles on different realms of existence, of ghosts and concepts that completely defy contemporary scientific logic. No surprise, being a 2,600-year-old philosophy, but it became a clear dividing line for me. I had a strong desire to know more and to believe less. My goal shifted to stripping away all the supernatural layers and focus purely on the logical structure and the enormous wisdom at the core. This essentially became the birth of Beyond Belief. The realization I had at the monastery wasn't about rejecting the wisdom. It was about reframing the language. Because when you look past the Pali chanting and the historical context, the core message of the Buddha is shockingly modern and scientifically perfectly sound. For example, I don't think of karma or karma as a cosmic reward system, but as a direct way of understanding cause and effect in your own mind and actions. And I don't view rebirth as reincarnation from one life to the next, but rather as a constant mental cycle that is reborn moment after moment until we choose to interrupt it. This is why secular Buddhism, in my opinion, is so powerful for the 21st century. This is a method of radical self-inquiry, a psychological framework that treats the mind as a problem to be solved with logic, patience, and evidence, not blind faith. It asks what works rather than what to believe. That is the lens that we're bringing to every episode of Beyond Belief. We keep the profound tools and leave the ancient luggage behind. At the monastery, we continued our practice, but that inner inquiry was always there for me. The weeks went by, and wherever we went, we were treated with the utmost respect as representatives of the Sangha. Despite common beliefs, monks are rather busy people. We sleep very little, constant practice, pindapata, ground maintenance, and participating in community events. My time eventually came to a natural end when it was time for me to renew my visa for the third time, I believe. I faced a choice, but also a dilemma of sorts. I could apply for a specific monk visa, which would commit me to monastic life indefinitely, or step back and resume the pilgrimage that I had grown to love and intended to finish. It might seem a little strange, but it's important to mention that my endurance challenge on the bicycle was also a very effective exercise in solitude and mindfulness. In some ways, I viewed myself as a hermit monk in sportswear. So, with a limited time on my tourist visa, I chose to accept my certificate, to show my gratitude to my fantastic teachers, to chant, to bow, and to finally disrobe. In the Theravada tradition, this is completely normal. One of my most respected teaching monks had gone through that process 27 times, I think. The doors to the Sangha remain open, and the invitation to return for yet another stint of monastic life is always standing. You could say that once a monk, always a monk. Now that we have the mindset, let's take a quick glance at the structure that underpins this entire philosophy. The Buddha's wisdom is often summarized as the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. To me, this is one of the most brilliant psychological blueprints ever devised. It's not religious law. You could choose to view this as a physician and call the Four Noble Truths a diagnosis and treatment plan. Something that we'll fully dissect and that I will explain in just a few weeks. The Eightfold Path is our manual. It is practical, moral, and meditative. It's not about following rules. It's about training your mind in the areas of wisdom, ethics, and concentration. It's basically the medicine, a cure, the recipe for mindfulness, you could say. In upcoming episodes, we're going to look at each one of these steps in greater detail, from right intention to right livelihood, and see exactly how they can apply to our busy, modern, secular lives. Next week, we're diving into what secular Buddhism actually entails and what it means to practice in a contemporary way. Then I'll guide you through our first attempts at meditation. Even if you are an experienced meditator, tune in because the foundation is essential. If you have any questions about monkhood, secular Buddhism, or meditation, post them in the comment section below. I shall read every single one and dedicate a segment to Q&A in future episodes. Also, if you want to speak with me directly, you can pop me an email to the address that appears in the outro in order to schedule a Zoom call or WhatsApp call. My journey led me back to my studio here in Mexico City, more convinced than ever that this wisdom is for everyone. Remember the challenge as presented by the Buddha himself. Don't just believe, practice, investigate, and see for yourself. So let us do exactly that. Until then, bye-bye.